You cannot disrespect a man. You need to find a way to be useful in his life, and you need to offer him enthusiastic, mind bending sex that you've never offered to any other guy. If you can do those three things effectively and manage it properly, there's really no reason for him to leave that relationship. Women will bang a guy even if they don't like him, but if they respect him, she'll still bang a guy that she respects, right? But when you lose a woman's respect, you're kind of losing that relationship. It's kind of ending.
So you don't need to, as a woman, respect a man just to have sex with him. But when you're talking about a relationship, especially a long-term relationship, respect is so important for her to maintain that attraction. It's the mental attraction part of it.
Correct.
So you have to have the physical attraction, but the mental attraction that comes through being a man that she can respect is what's going to allow you to run the distance.
And contempt ties in very closely with respect. And contempt is the clock that ticks down to the end of a relationship. If a woman expresses contempt for you as a man, she doesn't respect you. It's the same thing in a business transaction, right? Like if you have a business partnership or somebody that works for you and they express contempt or smugness or something like that, they just don't respect you. You know, you got to get rid of that guy.
You must deal with disrespect immediately. I know that you said that in the book. I completely agree with you there. I will say, though, as a point to the guys, sometimes we don't even know we're being disrespectful. Sometimes the things that one man finds disrespectful, another man might not find disrespectful. Sometimes we think we're being helpful. Sometimes we're pointing out a spot to go park in. For some reason, we don't think you have eyeballs.
These little indignities that stack up, become a snowball, become a giant sort of like landslide after a while. And, if you allow them to happen early on, they will continue. You're gonna basically teach her how to treat you, which is gonna come with some disrespect, and she'll continue to express disrespect, which ties into contempt. And again, contempt is the end of the relationship. If a woman doesn't respect you and expresses contempt, it's pretty much done.
No, I agree. Have you seen that video going around with JD Vance and Erica Kirk? The way that
with her hand on the back
him?
of his head, that one.
Yes. So there's a big debate about whether that is disrespectful. We can't even agree if a woman grasping another married man's head in an intimate manner is disrespectful or not. For the record, I think it's atrocious and highly disrespectful to his wife. So what's your thoughts of that whole scenario?
Yeah. So if their families were close, they were friends, I don't really see a problem with the hand placement on the back of his head. She didn't do any. I mean, it's bordering on an area that was, but I mean, clearly a problem for a lot of people. But if they were very friendly, the Kirk family with the Vance family, and they've known each other for a while, a warm embrace with a hand on the back of the head, I don't really see a problem with something like that.
My husband said that he didn't see anything wrong with it either. And I'm like, you can't touch a man the same way that you touch another woman, even if she embraces another woman that way.
Got it. But you got to understand that JD Vance is a highly respected guy that's climbed the ranks of men around him. He's the vice president. He's the number 2 guy. So it's not that unusual for a woman to sort of express that. I mean, you could call it attraction, you could call it like a touch point or whatever it happens to be. But clearly, you would have an issue with it if a woman did that to your husband. He didn't see an issue with it based on the circumstances. But you can understand why women would have an issue with it because it starts to lean towards intimacy. It clearly shows a sign of maybe some level of attraction for him, which is why the women would have an issue with it. I'm also from a European family, so we're very touchy. Like, when you run in a family, there's kisses on the cheeks and that sort of stuff. And, you embrace each other. So it really depends on what their upbringing was. If I'm not mistaken, I think Erica Kirk is Eastern European, isn't she?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure she is. You guys can fact check it in the comments, but that might be like her upbringing too, right?
Right. I do know that she hugs. There's pictures of her hugging the same way. Well, just for any of my viewers who happen to be female, don't ever hug my man that way. There's going to be problems. I'm just laying out. There's going to be problems. Let's go on to part 3, which is Steve from Accounting's how-to guides. But one of those guides was how to deal with a high conflict ex-wife. I thought it was quite practical into just how to deal with a high conflict woman in general. What is the general way that men should be handling high conflict women?
Yeah, so Steve's story is interesting. I met him, I think 2018 or 17 or something like that. He was actually a coaching client, and he was going through his divorce at the time, and I was helping him with that. And then, he became my book editor because he publishes books. So his origin with those recommendations, and they're really good, by the way, the additions that he's added to the book, is essentially, following my guidance of it's actually crueler to be cool. Like, you stick to the point. He talks a lot about using AI, Chat GPT, Grok, things like that, to sort of water down the message and get to the point. And I've actually used AI a little bit more lately, especially if you're dealing with something confrontational. Could be in business, could be in a relationship, for example. But if you sort of type something out and then you give it to AI and say, just deal with the facts and take the emotion out of it, it's actually quite good at distilling it down. And that's the guidance that he really gives. If you're going through a divorce, if you're going through a breakup and you're dealing with the courts and family laws in your life, and it's contentious, and the custody of your kids or the access to your kids is sort of up in the air, the worst thing that you can do is infuse levels of emotion into the transaction, and especially recorded communication, texts, emails, things like that, that could be leveraged against you in the family courts. Women get a pass most of the time, when it comes to stuff like that. They're kind of expected to be more emotional than men, but you don't get a pass as a guy, right? Like, you can't type out an email and then call her, see you next Tuesday sort of thing, right? Like, you have to be very to the point. It's about the issue, or it's about the kids. Remove the emotion. Let her pepper it with emotion if she wants. You just step away from it. And he's got some really good actionable advice about how to navigate that through a divorce, because he went through a very, very difficult one. All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here, where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the courses tab. Newer to the channel, hit subscribe.